Hello everyone, back here. Well, my normal content cycle won't be starting back up until February. So while we wait patiently, I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind a lot recently. The main three games from Hoyoverse, Zenless, HSR, and Genshin, have had inconsistent quality of life changes between them that could easily be broadly applied to all three games, but they just, well, aren't. And I've been hard pressed to come up with a reason as to why. If there's some possible change in Genshin that Hoyoverse deems worth it enough to act on, and that change could also be applied to their other games, what's in it for them to not go the extra mile and win some very easy points with their larger player base? There are too many examples of this oddity to go over in a single video, but I would like to at least go over some of the larger examples to see if we can get some semblance of a satisfying answer here. There's not really gonna be a structured, looking at one game at a time system here. I just want to get my thoughts out on this topic in one place as a whole. So if this video kind of feels like a stream of consciousness, then that's why. First, let's talk about the gacha mechanics of the three games. I think it's important to note how these games can be very uniform when it comes to foundational aspects of the way they are ran. Every game has a 90 hard pity 50/50 limited character banner that has a soft pity of 75, alongside a weapon banner with 80 hard pity and 65 soft pity. Some changes between games make sense, such as Zenless only having 2 rate up 4 stars on each banner to account for the game's comparatively smaller roster of 4 stars. But other changes... Hey, why is Zenless the only game to tell you your pity up front? You can manually count your pity in all three games, so it's not like they're trying to hide it that hard, but Zenless is the only game that actually tells you how far away you are from a 5-star or 4-star. I can see the logic that if you can't easily see your pity, you might accidentally overspend on the top up if you think you need more pulls than you actually need. Or you might end up buying 2 small bundles instead of 1 big bundle if you initially buy less than you actually need. But there's nothing upfront about Zenless that separates it from HSR or Genshin to where that logic does not apply to it. Zenless is the only game to have a 4-star selector in its shop instead of a rotating monthly roster of launch 4 stars, while Genshin is the only game to not have purchasable 5-star standard banner weapons in its shop. This could maybe say something about how valued 4 stars and 5-star standard banner weapons are in each respective game. I personally don't see it that way, as I think Genshin's standard banner weapons are actually the weakest of the 3 games, but still, there's maybe a justification for this inconsistency if you parse enough. You could also say the same for how Star Rail's power creep has made it easier to justify putting outdated 5 stars in their own shop. But wait, speaking of weapons, Genshin is the only game to have a combined weapon banner, where it's a toss-up if you get a standard banner weapon, or the limited weapon you want, or the limited weapon you don't want. This is another thing about cost. It's clearly a money-grubbing tactic to make people spend more on weapon banners, but why did HSR and Zenless get less money-grubbing versions of this system? Not that I'm complaining, of course, but by this logic they are losing money by doing things this way. One answer could be that Genshin is the oldest game here, that I'm covering anyways. Genshin was the game that really put Hoyoverse on the map. It's the reason why 99% of its larger audience cared about this company's games besides Genshin at all. So when Hoyoverse wanted to branch out into different games, maybe a way that they incentivized player transference was in dangling wanton changes in front of them in said new game. Oh, you should try Star Rail. It has separated weapon banners. Oh, Zenless has a guaranteed banner on its Bang Boo banner. Isn't that so generous? Maybe this push and pull is used as a way to get people to try other games. You're unsatisfied with Genshin's way of doing things, but not enough to stop playing. Meanwhile, that dissatisfaction feeds into how good the other games look in comparison. And this can go the other way around. Genshin is the only game to tell you the 4th stat of a 3-roller artifact pre-leveling it. Zenless just introduced a rerun banner where there's no 50/50 on the character the first time that you pull them. Star Rail introduces genuinely meta-relevant free 5 stars that are available for multiple patches. Genshin has the guaranteed 50/50 win wish system thingy. Star Rail and Zenless don't have time-gated level mats. They also both have an actual skip button. Genshin gives out more than one genuinely useful 4-star event weapon, while Star Rail has an actual way to get those event weapons after their events. Zenless gives free extra stamina every day. Genshin gives a free transient resin every week, while Zenless and Star Rail give free weekly mats to redeem on gear farming. And on that note, the energy cap of all 3 games is wildly inconsistent, and Genshin is the only game to not have a stamina overflow mechanic. In some facet of all 3 games, the grass is greener on the other side. So maybe you should check out the other side yourself. Now, I do think there are genuine quality of life quirks that are at least somewhat justified in being contained into a single game, mostly if that quality of life quirk contributes to a unique feel of a given game. Zenless gives you its daily extra battery charge through getting a daily cup of coffee, which better sells the feeling of urban city life, while on the other hand, Genshin makes you check in with Catherine for the last part of your dailies, to better sell the feeling of being a part of the Adventurers Guild, even if checking in with her is nothing but a time-wasting mechanic that you have to engage with every day. I'm not saying there's an obligation to put a daily stamina refresh refresh in every Hoyoverse game, but when Zenless was coming out, having a daily refresh that also sold the game's vibe through a tangible player benefit was certainly an effective incentive to get people to at least try the game out, which wouldn't have worked as well if the coffee system wasn't exclusive to it. Hey, I don't have a good place to plug in this video, so if you want to hear me yap more, then sub. True! Okay, back to the vid. But okay, really, are we saying a sizable amount of people try out these games just because of small quality of life features? Or at least a sizable enough group to where Hoyoverse is incentivized to keep doing this tactic over and over again? I'm not saying one quality of life change in one game means they're intentionally withholding it in another game. Zenless introducing the new rerun system doesn't automatically mean we as consumers should expect Genshin and HSR to do the exact same thing at the exact same time. But there has to be some incentive to have these beneficial features being drip-fed across multiple games across multiple years. Hoyoverse isn't dumb when it comes to this stuff. They know things like toggleable constellations or actual artifact presets have been asked for since Genshin came out half a fucking decade ago. In my opinion, I think they withhold these changes to space out easily producible positive reception. It's easier to spend money on a game that feels like it respects you as a player and hears its audience. So slowly but surely fixing issues one at a time keeps up this feeling of being heard for years on end. Oh, we'll increase the resin cap, we'll streamline the commission system, we'll add a skip button, and every time something like this gets added, devs listened gets plastered onto every video made about the game for the next week. When an actual issue is in the game that impacts their sales, they don't drag their feet for years before they eventually fix the issue. Look at how fast they entirely scrap the TV mode in Zenless, or how fast they fix something like Nervalet's charge beam's turn speed. If there is a genuine issue in the game that they are incentivized to fix, they will fix it. Which then conversely means they aren't incentivized to fix things that don't impact sales. People might complain about artifact presets for years, but how many avid spenders on Genshin genuinely stop spending because they refuse to formally add it? This drip feeding of positive reception is then integrated into this grass is greener on the other side system. Say you're a Genshin player, and HSR's 1.6 version just gave out a free Doctor Ratio. Everyone on Twitter spams Genshin could never for months, and then Zenless gives out another free 5-star in Haramasa. Now there's two sides at play. On one hand, they're incentivizing you to try out their other games with free rewards. But on the other hand, they're signaling that this type of generosity is possible in Genshin, as after all, it's made by the same company. Anything that overall reflects positively on Hoyoverse influences its reception as a company as a whole, even if it doesn't do anything positive in a specific game. To get back to the main point of the video then, this line of thinking is not limited to just tangible free stuff. When Zenless adds a rerun banner with a guaranteed drop rate for the first 5-star, people praise Hoyoverse as a whole, Zenless players are happy, while Star Rail and Genshin players either are more incentivized to play Zenless, or they get the hope that that system gets incorporated into their games, since there's now precedent for something like that being possible. This even extends to outside Hoyoverse. When a new gacha game comes out, one of the first things you'll hear about it is how its generosity sets it apart from other competitors, with one of the more memorable examples being the guaranteed weapon banner being all the rage with Wuthering Waves' release. Now, am I guaranteed to be right about this? No. There's nothing that confirms my theory besides what just makes sense to me. Every Hoyoverse game has a completely different team behind it. Maybe it really is as simple as one department not prioritizing a change as much as another department. We can only really speculate on the communication between teams on how these changes are added. But if the goal is to maximize player happiness without any finagling, it seems really easy to peek at your neighbor to see what's worked for them. But for the most part, that kind of thing is extremely rare. With so much money on the line, I do think there is incentive to play with the audience's wants and expectations to maximize interest, especially when it comes to transferring an existing audience to a new product. I think whether or not this tactic is intentional, it is still tangible and consistent, and I know I'm not the only one who has pointed out this trend. Although, a lack of communication could also explain purely nonsensical differences, like HSR being the only game that doesn't play a voice line when you get a new character, or Zenless having its stamina not on its map but on its other menu screen for some reason. This one really pisses me off. Or Zenless also not converting extra experience past the level cap into currency, unlike Star Rail or Genshin. For this stuff, maybe they did just want to do things their own way instead of shooting for consistency. I'm not gonna sit here and say stuff this small and inconsequential is somehow a ploy to make you spend more money or anything like that, even if the inconsistencies are kind of annoying. The other side of this argument that I can see is simply that adding quality of life features takes development time and resources. Genshin is a very, very large game, and I can understand if their hands are tied when it comes to focusing on features that aren't currently being focused on within a given patch's content. I am also no expert when it comes to what game development actually looks like, but I do feel confident enough to say that a good majority of the changes that I've listed so far would not be difficult at all to change. Toggleable constellations, a 4-star selector and 5-star standard banner weapons in the shop, non-time gated mats, a skip button, a separate weapon banner, showable banner pity, all of these systems, besides toggleable constellations, already exist in other Hoyoverse games, and they would take almost zero effort to implement in Genshin. And while Genshin has gotten some of the quality life changes from other games, like showing preferred artifact stats for a given character, the amount of easily changeable things that are not being acted on makes me feel like something else is going on. With large foundational factors, such as the max stamina cap, or Genshin's lack of stamina overflow, any inconsistency here is not ineptitude or a general lack of awareness. This is an intentional choice made by each respective development team to gauge things this way for their game. Maybe each team really does just have a different philosophy when it comes to capturing player attention, or they believe something about Genshin justifies its lowest cap and lack of stamina overflow. We can speculate all day long, but the point is, there's no way the difference isn't in some way intentional. And I do believe it makes sense for HSR and Zenless to be more generous in these foundational aspects if Genshin was the starting point for people to transfer from. A good example of Hoyoverse acting on incentive is through Genshin's commission system, as its streamlining has made the process of doing your dailies much faster. This is a general positive, yes, but it also makes it a less intense commitment to keep up with Genshin, which then makes juggling Genshin with other Hoyoverse games much easier. Commissions were an intentional time-wasting mechanic to make you play the game longer, so while fixing it is a giant improvement, it was only fixed when they had other products for you to spend that newfound time in. This is also compounded when games like Withering Waves joined the market, as having an actual competition within your genre makes it more of a priority to do right by your community. I think it's also a bit obvious that there's some sort of scale with the frequency of these changes depending on the current health of a given game. Zenless is a prime example, where they flood certain patches with a bunch of goodies and new quality of life changes whenever the player base starts to waver. It's perhaps most noticeable with Zenless given how turbulent its history has been up until now, with 1.4 and 2.5 serving as soft relaunches of the game with very upfront incentives to give the game a second chance. Maybe true artifact presets really are a break glass in case of emergency thing for all three games, although that would mean the current systems in each game are intentionally made to be obtuse and unhelpful. Do I think Hoyoverse would really do something like that intentionally? Not really, but if you're braver than me, then maybe you could take the leap to that conclusion. So anyways, yeah, that's my conclusion. I think these games intentionally dangle these changes to incentivize player transference and to stretch out positive reception. It would be really cool if these unique systems in each game were extended to every game that could utilize them, but Hoyoverse has been rather consistent on delivering the exact opposite of that. And regardless of my speculation as to why that is, it's pretty safe to say that it will be the standard baseline for many years to come. Going to the channel member corner, first of all, we have members that have reached the 6-month milestone, upgrading their bag channel member icon. Thank you again to Firelunar, Sustorm OTP, and Rainy Blue for supporting this channel for so long. I really appreciate it. On top of this, we have Lich DRMZ as a brand new member. Thank you so much for joining the channel, and with that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye!